From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
We have reached a landmark settlement with the nation's largest banks that will speed relief to the hardest-hit homeowners.
Relief to homeowners or a stealth bank bailout? We'll speak with Eve Smith of the blog Naked Capitalism about the $26 billion settlement with the nation's 5 largest banks. Then Chinese workers committing suicide at Apple plants in China. We'll look at why hundreds of thousands of people are protesting Apple over the labor practices at the factories they contract with in China.
My hope is that people are going to start assessing the real cost of a device. Not just an Apple device, but all electronics, which are made largely the same way.
We'll speak with Mike Daisey. He's performing a one-man show at the Public Theater in New York called The Agony and the Ecstasy of Steve Jobs. We'll also speak with Charles Duhigg of the New York Times. Then crusading Spanish judge Baltasar Garzón is found guilty of authorizing illegal recordings between clients and their lawyers.
Case, which is only one of 3 cases actually working their way through against Garzón. It seems to be a concerted effort by his enemies to cut him down to size.
We'll speak with Reed Brody of Human Rights Watch, who observed the trial in Spain. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Justice Department has unveiled a $26 billion mortgage settlement with the nation's 5 largest banks to resolve claims over faulty foreclosures and mortgage practices that have indebted and displaced homeowners and sunk the nation's economy. The bulk of the mortgage settlements expected to go to as many as 1 million homeowners in the form of re-educated mortgage debts or refinancing at lower interest rates. Another 750,000 people who've lost homes to foreclosure will receive between $1,500 and $2,000. Attorney General Eric Holder helped announce the deal Thursday.
We saw that far too often servicers pushed borrowers into foreclosure, even though federal regulations require the servicers to try other alternatives first. These failures didn't just hurt borrowers who might have been able to afford modified mortgages. They fueled the downward spiral of our economy and of communities nationwide. They eroded faith in our financial system, and they punished American taxpayers who have had to foot the bill for foreclosures that could have been avoided. With this settlement, we are recovering precious taxpayer resources.
While the deal is being described as a $26 billion settlement, the banks will only have to pay out a total of $5 billion in cash between them. We'll have more on the mortgage settlement after headlines. The U.S.-led NATO coalition in Afghanistan is being accused of killing 8 children in an airstrike earlier this week. In a statement, Afghan President Hamid Karzai said the attack took place in the eastern Kapisa province and that he has assigned officials to investigate. In other news from Afghanistan, the U.S. military has apologized following the release of a photograph showing a team of Marines posing in front of a flag with a logo resembling that of the Nazi SS. The SS is notorious for having killed millions of people during the Nazi Holocaust. Despite the apology, none of the Marines will face disciplinary action. It's the second major controversy involving Marines in Afghanistan this year, following the discovery of video showing troops urinating on the bodies of dead Afghans. In Syria, at least 25 people have been killed in 2 bomb attacks on military and security buildings in the northern city of Aleppo. The bombings come as the Syrian government continues to bombard the city of Homs with tanks, helicopters, and artillery, reportedly killing more than 100 people Thursday. Witnesses said roads around the suburb of Baba Amr have been sealed and residents are running out of food. In video posted online, an activist living inside Homs appealed for international help.
This is Homs, Baba Amr. You can see over there another rocket landed in one of the civilians' houses. This has been going on all day long from 5 a.m. It's about 8 a.m. right now. This is going to keep going on until 7 p.m. This is a life we've got used to. Rockets, bullets, killing children dead in the street, body parts. Why isn't the world helping us? Where's the humanity in the world? Where's the freaking UN? Why isn't anyone doing anything about this? Are these animals? Aren't these civilian houses over there? Are these human beings living in that house?
Greek unions have launched a two-day strike in protest of a new austerity deal approved in order to receive a European bailout. The deal would cut the private sector minimum wage by 22% for workers over 25 and 30% for those under 25. European finance ministers are still withholding the $170 billion bailout, saying the Greek austerity measure does not go far enough. In the Maldives, ousted President Mohamed Nasheed is calling for his successor to step down and for new elections to be held following what he's described as an armed coup earlier this week. Nasheed said he was forced to resign at gunpoint and blamed the coup on allies of Mahmoud Abdul Gayoom, who ruled the Maldives for 30 years before Nasheed became its first democratically elected president in 2008. Despite a warrant for his arrest, Nasheed has led hundreds of supporters in a rally through the streets of the capital city, Male. A backer of Nasheed said protesters will defend the ousted president.
Yeah, we're here because we just got a news saying that the police is going to come and pick our president. So that is why we are here.
What I want to do if they come?
Well, we will protest and we will follow his orders.
The protests for Nasheed come as a UN delegation has arrived in the Maldives to help mediate the political crisis. The head of the delegation, UN Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs, Oscar Fernandez-Taranco, said he's concerned for Nasheed's safety.
We are concerned about the security of the former president, Nasheed, that it is extremely important that he be treated fully within the rule of law and that his rights, like those of all Maldivians, need to be protected and respected.
You can go to our website at democracynow.org for our coverage of the Maldives coup from Thursday's broadcast. The Spanish judge Baltasar Garzón has been disbarred for 11 years after being found guilty of ordering illegal monitoring. Garzón is known for taking on international human rights cases with actions including ordering the arrest of former Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet in 1998 in Britain, indicting Osama bin Laden for the 9/11 attacks, and probing the abuse of U.S. prisoners at Guantanamo. But on Thursday, he was convicted of authorizing illegal recordings between clients and their lawyers in a corruption case involving the governing People's Party. Spain's Supreme Court has banned Garzón from the legal profession for 11 years, effectively ending his career as a judge. The court also said he could not appeal the ruling. We'll have more on the story later in the broadcast with Human Rights Watch's Reed Brody. Solidarity actions were held online throughout the world Thursday to back a Palestinian activist who's been on hunger strike for nearly 2 months in protest of his detention without trial or charge. Khader Adnan, believed to be a member of the group Palestinian Islamic Jihad, has refused to eat since he was arrested in mid-December. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission has approved 2 proposed new nuclear power reactors at Southern Nuclear's Vogtle site in Georgia. The move marks the first time the NRC has approved new reactors in the United States since shortly before the 3 Mile Island nuclear meltdown in Pennsylvania in 1979. The vote was 4-1, with NRC Chair Gregory Jasko casting the sole dissenting vote. He said he'd objected to the licenses over the absence of guarantees to implement recommendations made following the Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan last year. A coalition of anti-nuclear groups has vowed to file suit in order to block the project. Over 1,000 students, parents, teachers, and Occupy Wall Street protesters rallied in New York Thursday at a vote over the closing of 24 public schools. The protesters under the umbrella group Occupy the DOE tried to stop the vote from happening. Using the human microphone, the protesters disrupted the meeting at times but were unsuccessful in stopping the closing of 23 schools. New York public school teacher Brian Jones and high school student Tafador Sarov helped organize the protests.
What we really need is real democracy, and unfortunately what we have right now is mayoral dictatorship over the schools. So they close the schools, they do whatever they want, and nobody gets any say. None of the teachers get a say, none of the parents get a say, and students certainly don't get a say. We have to interrupt them with mic checks just to be heard.
I'm here tonight because the Panel for Education Policy, a panel of Bloomberg's puppets, is here to close down as many high schools as they can in the process of neoliberal education reform to open up privatized charter schools. This is a direct and racially motivated attack on our communities, and we came here tonight to shut it down.
In other education news, new studies are showing the education gap between rich and poor Americans is growing to record levels. According to the New York Times, one recent study found the gap in standardized test scores between affluent and low-income students has grown by about 40% since the 1960s. Another study from researchers at the University of Michigan shows the disparity in college completion by income bracket has grown by 50% since the late 1980s. Right-wing activists are gathering in Washington, D.C. for the Conservative Political Action Conference. Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach is expected to appear on a panel with white nationalist Robert Vandervoot. Kobach recently campaigned with Romney on immigration reform in South Carolina. Meanwhile, Go Proud, a group that represents LGBTQ Republicans, has been barred from sponsoring the convention. And the coalition of Immokalee workers has announced a major victory in reaching an agreement with the grocery chain Trader Joe's, ensuring humane working conditions for farm workers harvesting tomatoes sold inside Trader Joe's stores. On Thursday, the coalition of Immokalee workers said Trader Joe's had finally agreed to join the group's Fair Food program after a lengthy public campaign that included protests in front of the chain's locations. Before the deal, the farm workers said their wages had remained stagnant since 1978, with tomato pickers having to put in 10-hour days just to make the minimum wage. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.